I genuinely don't know how to follow that. I feel really moved as a testament to the work we've been doing. You couldn't get better, I don't think. But you know, Dexter said something really important there, that the culture of our party didn't begin 20 years ago. The culture that makes our party began 60 years ago. Our founding chair, Comrade Hopal, and the close comrades around him, who also were the founders of this party, began their work in the 1960s. And they have been working and studying every single day since then. That is the foundation on which our party rests. And of course, they took their inspiration from the comrades who made the revolutions in the Soviet Union, in China, all over the world. They took their guidance from the founders of our great movement, and they have tried to live up to it, and that is what we also try to do, comrades. You know, our guests today have reminded us that our struggle against imperialism is a global one. It's common to all humanity. Imperialism is standing in the way of humanity's development. It is a block on progress, on the creative energies and abilities of the workers of the world to solve their own problems and create what the Chinese talk about, a beautiful world, a shared world of common prosperity. That world has been within our grasp for more than 100 years, and it is only imperialism that stops us from realizing that. And with our comrades today, we must redouble our efforts, re-sign our pledges to be part of the movement that sweeps this block on human progress away for good. I'll try not to talk for too long because I know that everybody wants to get to the barbecue. I do want to mention by name a few of the founding comrades who are no longer with us. In particular, comrades Godfrey and Iris Kramer, comrade Deborah Lavin. These were people who were staunch fighters for our party and with us long before we founded our party, and we missed them greatly. There are other comrades, older comrades, we lost from our ranks, like John Heppel, Alan Jones, Mick Appleyard. There are others. And there are, of course, now many of our older comrades who are unable to be with us and play the role they used to play because of health issues. In particular, of course, our founding chair, Comrade Hopal, but our first General Secretary, Zane Carpenter, who was such a stalwart centre of all our work for so many years, our Comrade Blanche Carpenter. We have with us today Comrade Giles, and I'm really happy to see you, Giles. I wasn't sure if you would make it. We owe a great debt of gratitude to the tireless, selfless work of these comrades, and we must remember to emulate their example as we go forwards. You know, Hopal pointed out in his speech that the Ukraine war right now, NATO's proxy war in Ukraine against Russia, to give it its full title, is changing the world. It's revealing, and simultaneously it is exacerbating the weaknesses of the imperialist system in each imperialist country individually, of the imperialist alliances, of their economics, of their politics. NATO is being defeated by Russia in Ukraine. And this is a consummation devoutly to be wished. You know, if there is going to be the horrific sacrifice of Ukraine's men to the gods of profit by powers that care nothing for human life, we must take from it this positive aspect, which is that the anti-imperialist world is being strengthened in the course of this horrific fight. And we see that process accelerating further with the war in Palestine. You know, the genocide of the Palestinians is not imperialism's first genocide. And it did not begin on 7th of October last year. So what is making such a qualitative difference in the way this ramping up of an already existing genocide is playing out around the world? Well, I think one of the things that's changed is that we are watching it as it happens. We're not finding out about it 10, 20, 30 years later while it was hidden away from us. We, the people of the entire globe, are seeing this genocide play out in real time. And at the same time as it's happening, they are seeing the lies and the hypocrisy of the leaders of their own countries. Simultaneously, they see these two things happening. It could not be clearer. The true face of imperialism could not be clearer than when all of our leaders go rushing to embrace Netanyahu and give him the green light for this, when they continue to send their bombs while shedding crocodile tears over the deaths of women and little children, but saying, well, it's not our fault they're standing on top of Hamas's weapons. What can you do? The Lancet recently gave figures, and I'm sure they'll turn out to be an underestimation of the true death toll in Gaza this year. But again, the positive side of this horrific carnage is that the mass of the world's people oppose what is happening. And when they see that it continues despite their opposition, in spite of their opposition, in spite of every attempt to call the perpetrators to book, the lessons they are learning about the system and about so-called international law and international institutions are invaluable. Because what are they doing? They are pushing us to give up on the idea that we can vote for the solution, that we can trust in our leaders to do the right thing if we just tell them what we want, that we must rely on our own strength. Increasingly, the world's people are supporting the fight of the resistance forces on the ground in the Middle East, and increasingly they look to a strengthening anti-imperialist camp, to Russia, to China, to the DPRK, to BRICS, to come to the aid, real concrete aid of the people of the Middle East. And in that respect, haven't the people of Yemen become all of our heroes for And don't they absolutely embody what Chairman Mao said about imperialism being a paper tiger and about when history is on your side, you cannot be defeated? That's what the people of Yemen, together with the people of Palestine, of Lebanon, across the Middle East, the resistance forces are showing us that in the end, it's not weapons that win the war, it's people. You know, imperialism is in crisis. It's in its deepest ever crisis. This is a system that was ripe for overthrow more than a century ago. It was overthrown in one significant part of the world. Since that time, its contradictions have grown deeper and deeper and deeper. Its irrationality has only become more so. Its complete inability to provide for even a decent proportion of the world's people anything like a dignified existence. It's in crisis and decay economically, socially, and politically. Everywhere you look around you, you see indications of the last days of Rome. This is an empire which is dying on its feet. But, as has been pointed out, it won't go down without a fight, and it has powerful weapons in its arsenal. But what we see today that gives us such great hope is how the anti-imperialist camp is renewing itself, is recohering in a way we have hardly seen since the Korean War. Who does not remember here What a wonderful example of socialist internationalism was displayed by the anti-imperialist, the socialist camp during the 1950 to 53 Fatherland Liberation War waged by the DPRK. You know, not only the people of Korea fought in that war and suffered tremendously as a result. The true numbers aren't known, but between 4 and 5 million Korean people died during those 3 years of war. If that isn't a genocide, I don't know what is. 1 million volunteers came from China, China which had been fighting already for 14 years, its revolutionary struggle, had only achieved its revolution 1 year before. 1 million volunteers came across the border to support their fraternal nation. They understood that the war was aimed not only at Korea, but also at them, at socialism itself. And they came to the aid of Korea. And of course, the USSR also came to the aid of the DPRK. The air force that the DPRK had during that war was a Soviet air force. Soviet pilots in Soviet planes put on Korean uniforms, and there was a polite fiction between the USSR and the USA about where these pilots really came from, because everybody knew that to openly admit that they were Soviet pilots would be to bring on calls for a nuclear exchange between the USA and the USSR. So they didn't want to do that. But as well as sending an air force to stop the horrific domination of the skies by the imperialists, and every country which has suffered from a US bombing campaign knows what that means. When the USA has dominance of the skies, it is very happy to use it, to bomb the people into the ground, to destroy all their buildings. You know, the USA bragged that Pyongyang would take 1,000 years to rise from the ashes. There was no building in North Korea higher than 1 story remaining standing at the end of that war. So if you want to see what socialism and a planned economy are good for, go today to Pyongyang. It gives us great hope today to see once again Russia and the DPRK, China and the DPRK, renewing and strengthening their bonds of friendship and solidarity, their military, economic, political cooperation. This is the bedrock of the new anti-imperialist world which is rising today. So what's our part in all of this? We don't just sit on the sidelines and say, oh good, someone elsewhere is doing the work that needs to be done. We understand the axis of resistance must be built everywhere. Everywhere. Imperialism must be beaten at home as well as abroad. That's the job of a real communist party, to build the forces which have the steel, the dedication, the understanding. Why do we study? So that we understand imperialism. Why do we build our organization and go through these struggles? So that we have steel. Because it is communists who give the real steel to an anti-imperialist struggle, that give it the determination and tenacity to understand its enemy properly, theoretically, and to keep fighting no matter how hard the conditions. That's the power of Marxist science, which is in our hands, needs to be in the hands of the masses. It's the masses who make history, not individuals, not me or you. It's not even our party. Our party wants to play a role in helping the masses to make their history, to live up to their historical destiny. The workers of Britain are the ruling class in waiting. They just don't know it. They need help to understand it. They need the weapon of Marxism to be brought to them by people who are unafraid to stand up to bourgeois lies and prejudice, who can help them to take hold of this weapon, which is their liberation ideology, and to use it. So connecting Marxism with the masses is the #1 goal and priority of our party, and of course that explains why we put such a premium on study, because you can't connect people with something you haven't understood yourself. And just go a little bit more on that topic of study. You know, our whole history, the history of our movement, the history of our party, of more recent struggles, has revealed to us time and time and time again the importance of every single comrade taking responsibility for their own theoretical development. It is not good enough to rely on 1 or 2 wise leaders. If you're lucky, they will always lead you right. But what if they start to go wrong? Where are the people to help them see they're making mistakes? Communism rests in the collective wisdom of the crowd. But to have collective wisdom, the members, the individuals of the collective, must have wisdom too. Yes. The collective is only as good as the strength of its members. We cannot have a movement that relies on 1 or 2 people to know everything. We cannot have a movement that can be so easily decapitated. We need that collective wisdom. The struggles that face us are hard. The enemies that face us are cunning. They have the power to throw money at so many diversions and distractions. Just today I was reading a new article that's been posted online by the rebranded Trotskyite group that are now calling themselves the Revolutionary Communist Party. They're trying to take our clothes and our colours. And under the guise of being communists, they are spreading anti-communist filth. It's the usual tactic of Trotskyites. To be able to face and understand those things requires knowledge, requires study, requires consistent application to the science of Marxism-Leninism, and confidence to bring that to people. It's easy for the RCP to post their lies because those lies are reinforced by everything everybody's already learned. So they fall naturally on the ears and the eyes of the receivers. It's much harder to debunk the lies when you're flowing against the tide of what everybody knows. But we're living in a world where what everybody knows has started to be greatly questioned. It's much easier today than it was 20 years ago to say to somebody this sentence. Well, in fact, 3 words. No, 4 words. I can't count. You've been lied to. If you say to anybody now in the country, you've been lied to, they'll agree with you. You've immediately got the basis to start a conversation about what you've been lied to about and why. It's much, much easier today to talk to people about the Soviet Union and Stalin and why those things are worth talking about. I was told, someone recently said about our party, well, they're a bit obsessed with old things from the past, you know. No one cares. Nobody cares. The point is, our class has been taught not to care in order to take away from them their understanding of their history, their capabilities, and therefore their future. It is to understand our history is to be able to fight for our future, to understand what our capabilities are. We don't study the October Revolution and the leadership given to it by Lenin and Stalin because we're some kind of historical reenactment society. We do it because they were great exponents of Marxist science. They have so much to teach us. What kind of idiot would not want to learn from the greatest exponents of the science they are trying to practice? It is our job to debunk the idea that study is something like old-fashioned or unnecessary. The British working class was identified even in Marx's day as being very backward theoretically and opposed to study. We have to break this if we're going to make progress, comrades, and we have to be proud of breaking it and proud of saying, no, I study history not as a professor, but as a revolutionary, to bring the truths it contains to the masses so they can fight and win. That's our job. To stand up against bourgeois propaganda, to strengthen our collective capabilities, to analyse correctly, to maximize and harness the power of collective understanding, collective action, to build the British base of the worldwide axis of anti-imperialist resistance and to go forward to a world of socialism and prosperity. That's what we're here for, comrades. That's the tradition we are carrying forward. That's why we invite you, all of you who are not already members, to join with us. Join this struggle. There is nothing more worthwhile you can do with your life in this world where imperialism dominates the globe and creates bloodshed, poverty, immiseration, disease everywhere it goes. There's only one useful thing to do while this system still exists, and that is to be part of the force dedicated to fighting and overthrowing it. Thank you, comrades. Palestine! 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 Palestine!